You walk into the plant store and see those decorative moss poles in the corner. They are wrapped in twine, sitting in cute ceramic pots, promising to turn your leggy Monstera into a showpiece. You buy one thinking you are prepared. It is the single most common mistake I see, and I made it myself for years. We buy support structures based on what looks good on a shelf, rather than what a climbing plant actually needs when it is 6 feet tall and heavy with leaves. By month 6, that decorative pole has rotted from constant misting, the plant has outgrown it, and aerial roots are reaching desperately into empty air. You are left wondering why your climbing plant looks worse with support than it did trailing. It feels like a personal failure, but I want you to understand right now that it is simply a structural one. You were sold a tool that was never designed to handle the reality of how these plants actually grow in nature. And later in this video, I will get to one support method that almost every plant owner dismisses as doing nothing, when it is actually allowing the plant to do exactly what millions of years of evolution designed it to do. Have you ever bought a simple bamboo stake, pushed it into soil next to your pothos, and tied the vine to it? Most people think this is adequate support. They assume the plant just needs something to lean against. But over months, you notice leaves stay small, internodal spacing gets longer, and the plant never develops fenestrations you see in photos. This is not because your plant is unhealthy, it is because a bamboo stake provides structural support without climbing feedback the plant searches for. In nature, climbing aroids like Monstera grow up rough tree bark, covered in moss and moisture, that aerial roots can grip and penetrate. When you give a plant a slick bamboo pole, aerial roots reach out, touch nothing they can anchor into, and the plant stays in juvenile mode. And here is what almost nobody talks about. There is a fundamental difference between holding a plant upright and giving it something to climb. A stake holds, but proper support invites root penetration and moisture exchange, which signals the plant has found a tree and can transition to mature growth. If you respond to small leaves by buying a taller bamboo stake, you solve the wrong problem. The plant needs texture and moisture at root contact point, not more height. So what should you do instead? Replace bamboo with textured support that allows aerial roots to grip. Use moss pole, cocoa coir pole, or rough wood. The moment aerial roots penetrate moist, fibrous surface, the plant interprets this as finding a host tree and begins producing larger, fenestrated leaves. Your plant was not genetically limited, it was structurally starved. Have you ever seen sphagnum moss poles wrapped in plastic netting sold at garden centers? Most people think these are the gold standard. They buy one, mist it daily, and expect transformation. But after months, moss rots, pole sags, and sour smell develops in potting mix. This is not user error, this is design flaw. Sphagnum moss holds moisture incredibly well, which aerial roots need, but that same retention creates anaerobic pockets where bacteria and mold thrive. The pole becomes waterlogged, moss compacts, air cannot circulate, and organic matter decomposes while attached to your living plant. And here is what almost nobody talks about. Commercial moss poles are designed for retail shelf life, not long-term biological function.
Plastic netting and tight wrapping look professional, but strangle the moss and prevent air exchange that would keep it healthy. If you respond by misting more frequently, you accelerate rot. So what should you do instead? Build your own using loose sphagnum in chicken wire allowing airflow, or switch to cocoa coir poles which drain better than moss while still providing texture. Your moss pole was not defective because you did something wrong. It was defective by design. Have you ever trained a Monstera flat against a metal trellis or grid? Most people think this looks modern and architectural. They mount metal grid to wall, train vines horizontally, and admire how organized it looks. But after 6 months, leaves facing the wall yellow and drop, while only outer leaves stay healthy. This is not watering or light issue. This is airflow problem from forcing 3-dimensional plant into 2-dimensional plane. When you train climbing plant flat, you eliminate airflow behind foliage. Humidity builds up, and fungal issues develop. Additionally, aerial roots are directed toward wall, where they either dry out or press against surface they cannot penetrate.
And here is what almost nobody talks about. Horizontal growth forces plant to distribute energy across many growing points instead of concentrating upward. You get wide sprawling plant with smaller leaves rather than tall plant with large mature foliage. If you respond to yellowing by increasing humidity, you worsen airflow problem. So what should you do instead? Use freestanding trellis positioned away from wall, allowing air circulation. Or accept climbing plants grow vertically, not horizontally, and give them central pole. Your plant was not failing. It was forced into unnatural orientation. Have you ever skipped support entirely and let your pothos trail from hanging basket? Most people think this is easiest, most natural option. They assume the plant is happy cascading. But compare trailing pothos to climbing one. Trailing has tiny leaves, long sparse vines, never develops full lush appearance. This is not because trailing is unnatural. In wild, these plants trail when searching for new hosts to climb, but trailing is not mature state, it is juvenile searching state. When you let climbing plant trail permanently, you lock it into perpetual adolescence. Aerial roots reach into empty air, find nothing, plant never receives signal to transition to adult form. And here is what almost nobody talks about. People celebrate long cascading vines as if length equals health. But length without leaf size is distress signal. The plant is stretching, searching, expending energy on stem growth instead of leaf development. If you respond to leggy growth by fertilizing more, you just get longer vines with same small leaves. So what should you do instead? Give the plant something to climb, even simple cocoa pole in pot center. The moment aerial roots anchor into textured surface, growth shifts from searching to establishing and leaf size increases. Your trailing plant was not thriving. It was waiting for permission to grow up. Now here is the one most people get backwards. Have you built or bought a DIY wooden ladder or frame and watched your Monstera explode with growth? Most people dismiss wood as support because they worry it will rot or attract pests. But with right wood treated properly, it becomes the single best climbing surface for aroids. Wood provides everything: rough texture for root penetration, moisture retention without waterlogging, structural stability for years. Cedar and redwood resist rot naturally while maintaining organic texture roots can grip. When aerial roots encounter wood, they actively grow into the grain, penetrating cracks, anchoring the plant like climbing a living tree. This anchoring triggers hormonal shift telling plant it found a host, and mature growth begins. Leaves double in size, fenestrations develop, plant stops producing long searching vines, and starts compact, robust growth. And here is what almost nobody talks about. Wood is self-regulating for moisture. Unlike moss poles that stay soggy or bamboo that stays dry, wood absorbs moisture when air is humid and releases when dry, creating perfect microclimate for aerial roots. If you respond to vigorous growth by worrying plant will outgrow it, you are seeing success and interpreting it as problem. So what should you do instead? Embrace wooden support and plan to add height by stacking extensions as plant matures. Use untreated cedar planks or build simple ladder from 2x2s. Let aerial roots dig in and watch transition into adult form. Your wood support was not temporary solution, it was permanent infrastructure the plant was searching for. There is a quiet confidence that comes from understanding that the shape of your support structure dictates the potential of your plant. When you stop buying what looks tidy on a shelf and start building what matches how the plant actually grows in nature, everything changes. You realize that a climbing plant is not decoration that needs to be contained. It is a solar panel that needs to unfold vertically, anchoring as it rises, producing larger leaves to capture more light. I walk past my plants now, and I see a Monstera climbing a rough cedar plank, producing leaves the size of dinner plates. I remember when I had the same plant tied to a bamboo stake with small juvenile leaves, and I thought that was just how Monsteras looked indoors. I was not doing something wrong. I was just using a tool that was never designed to unlock the plant's potential. If this changed the way you see plant supports, subscribe and share this with someone who keeps buying decorative moss poles and wondering why their climbing plants stay small. We are building a community that understands plants need structure that matches their biology. They are living systems, and living systems respond to texture, moisture, and climbing signals, not pretty packaging.